Barnwell. There. Brian Cook. Timothy Monet.
Here.
Albert Trent.
I'm here.
The Lamb.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item is the approval of the meeting agenda. Make sure your
Mic's turned on. I've had one request to move old business before basically the new business. And that's the review of the completed audit for forwarding to the townships. And then the move setting the meeting date, next meeting date down at the end of the agenda before public comments. With those,
And then I'd like to add GLUA attorney under new business is number 3.
okay. Okay, with those amendments, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Okay, first item is the approval of the April 15th, 2025 annual meeting.
I think these are the same as you and I looked at earlier.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the annual meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved for the annual meeting. The approval of the April 15th regular meeting is next.
I'll make that motion.
Entertain, okay. Mr. Monet made a motion to approve those.
I'll second that.
Bill Lamb second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, nay, motion is approved. I will now, as a notice, go down to new business. I asked Mr. Bertrand to maybe just give us an update on the dissolution that Lyon Township is considering and where they're headed and what their thoughts are. I'll turn it over to you.
All of that at
And
once?
I don't know if you want to sit back as not a member here or as a supervisor. I don't know what's
It
appropriate.
didn't matter.
Tim, you have any?
No, it doesn't matter. Hey,
Okay. Go ahead.
we only received yesterday the information from our attorney. There's a list of steps that he would like to see us go through. And until we go through those steps, there's not much sense in talking about what to do with money until we know if there is money left over. I have heard rumors that the grant, $66,000 owed on the MDARD grant, was not resolved, but possibly we wouldn't have to owe it. I have not seen that in writing. I have not heard that from our attorney, and he didn't know anything about it. But this is all information that came yesterday. So I can go over it later. I mean, as far as the steps, I suspect it matches pretty well. I'm still in the money game. If that money's running around out there, I still got a problem, or the debt is still running around. I got a problem. Other than that, it's That's all I can tell you right at the moment.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Bertram?
Well, I have a comment slash and a question. It seems pretty clear that based on the articles of incorporation, it takes both townships to even begin the dissolution process. And I'm just wondering, after all this time has passed, resources have been spent, and in my opinion, wasted, and money has been spent for legal. When is Lyon Township going to acknowledge even the start of the dissolution process? Because in my view, the attorneys can't even finalize anything until both municipalities are on board. So I would ask Mr. Bertrand, is there any intention of at least acknowledging the dissolution process based on what we've seen thus far?
We are being encouraged to follow a dissolution plan that was sent to us by our attorney. That would be in itself some recognition that we are proceeding. If you go back on the backstory for some of this, at the point the grant was in theory removed, I was the first one saying that I'd be behind dissolving GLUA. And then since then, the debt came up. I just want to personally see that the attorneys somehow magically resolved that debt issue. I think we're here to proceed and go through the steps as far as us as a township board that he laid out for us. Does anybody know, is there in writing that debt?
Yeah, we've been working on it, and they agreed to pay our last invoice, and just I think Susan maybe could answer that, but she got an email that indicates that they're in the process of finalizing the grant out now. And that just occurred in probably the last 2 days. So, and I don't know, did you get to read checking on that?
Not as of this afternoon,
No.
we did not.
So, but we feel comfortable that they wouldn't have proceeded to pay another payment on it. But that was something that they had indicated would be of, possibility, but I don't. But we'll have that.
So if I could just add to that, the idea of us having to repay the money that we got through the grant just came up as a thought during a telephone conversation. It wasn't an actual request that we repay it or anything we received in writing that we had to repay it. It wasn't based on a legal opinion. It was just a thought of somebody on the telephone. And again, if Susan wants to add to that one during the public comment, she could do that. But as far as I know, there's nothing to the repayment at this point.
Thank you, Phil. I do realize it was a passing thought, but as a supervisor, I have to pay attention to that stuff.
We appreciate that. I guess I wonder, I know say that you, as I think Tim said, you've engaged attorneys to do it. I guess my question here would be, is it the intent, or when will we have verification of any intent by Lyon Township to proceed on this path? Because everybody's spending a lot of money and effort. We're doing a lot of work to do these steps somewhat. Is it for naught? What is the, I mean, are we,
We've all been chasing this for a long time.
but can we get,
I-
when
well,
will we
I
get,
can
when
tell
will,
you-
I guess my question, when will a commitment be coming forth from Lyon Township that says they will, are at least beginning the steps to just.
I can only tell you what I'm going to do.
Okay.
We have a board meeting tomorrow based on the information we hear tonight. I will suggest at the board meeting that we have a special meeting to discuss this and go through the steps that our attorney would like us to proceed through. And then the Lyon Township Board can make a decision. I can't promise I'll make a decision tomorrow because I don't even know what's going to happen yet today here. I can't give you a commitment on the time. That's what I'm going to do. Whether or not the board goes along with me is a whole nother story, as you know.
So both grants, all the donations, everything is a responsibility of this board. Why are the township attorneys in the township spending money and resources on something that they have no legal control over? This board does. It
You
seems
asked
odd.
me?
No, I'm just throwing
I
that
told
out.
you
Okay. Well, we don't want to, I mean,
Is there something that Susan has that she would like to say? I mean, do we have an objection to her providing us some information if she has some to provide at this
I
point?
think she will provide, something that our last correspondence saying that we're going to close out the grant.
We have to approve that. They can't just, she can't just go cancel it. We as a board
No.
have to approve that first.
Put that on the agenda.
Am I correct?
We finished up the grant work. We finished up the grant work. We made the request for the final payment. So the natural thing, once everything has been completed and the final payment by them is paid to us, there's a, grant.
Based on the agreement,
Yeah, based on the agreement.
we have to send a 30-day notice of cancellation. That's in the agreement.
Oh, okay.
And I believe this board it needs to approve the
why don't we,
cancellation of it.
Take a motion to approve the cancellation of the MDR grant. I'd like to have that motion right now so we can
Cancel it or close it out?
close it out.
Close it out.
Yeah.
Well, the language is cancel.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But that,
Absolutely.
if I understand the
Close it
agreement.
out slash cancel.
Yeah.
Tim, did you make that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
Let's say it one more time though for me, please.
Yeah.
The motion itself.
That
Motion to close out / cancel the MDARD grant.
GLUA to. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any further discussion? I just would add that we'll be following all the procedures that are required by the grant requirements. Yeah.
And for me, if I could say one thing really quick is after doing some research, I don't see any problems because after reviewing the grants from MDARD, EPA, or otherwise, there's nothing in the disclosure forms at all that say that if you don't go through with the project, and I only relate this to my small business in East Lansing during COVID, I had to use any grants I received for its intended purpose. If I did not use that money for its intended purpose, and on forms I was required by law to hand over to the state, I would have to return that money. Every dime that has been spent thus far by GLUA was for its intended purpose. There is nothing in writing that says, well, by the way, we don't care about your intended purpose. Therefore, if you don't go through with the project, you must give it back. That language doesn't exist. So I think the concern over this idea of having to refund money is a moot point because it doesn't stipulate as such.
Yeah, and we did supply,
Yeah.
Susan did supply documentation that every penny that we spent
Yeah,
was for that. We paid and we had to show them that we did pay the bill and
absolutely.
then we get 70% back. So that's
Right. So I'll go on record and say why Lyon Township is waiting around because some magical
Well, let's take a
money
vote.
that we
Let's
may
take a
have to
vote.
pay back.
Discussion.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
It's fine.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
If we're gonna close the grant, does that need a roll call?
I think you're probably right.
Okay, we will do that, would you please?
Bill Check,
Yes.
Jim Barnwell,
Yes,
Brian Cook,
Yes.
Tim Monet,
Yes.
Paul Bertrand,
No.
Bill Lamb, yes.
motion has been approved. Okay. If we have no further discussion with Mr. Bertrand and Lyon Township rep, I'll call him for this as supervisor. Now he's on our board. Harris Township is Jim Osling. He's been the liaison for Harris
We're-
Township.
We're not in order.
Yeah, Lyon Township.
Old business.
Oh, Lion Township.
Old
This-
business, we moved to old business
Yes,
before new
yes,
business.
yes.
Oh,
You already jumped with Paul.
Hmm?
You jumped already with
I
Paul.
already jumped.
I know.
Okay, let's go back to the old business then
Sure.
and review the audit if we could.
We're gonna,
You can leave your stuff there. Thank you.
Sorry.
I gotta be bigger. Hey, take it away, Phil.
Okay, so we got our audit back from Tyler Waters. And he audited through the period ending March 31st of 2025. And what he found was all the ending balances in the checking account for each month are correct, no changes. There was one note that he indicated in his audit, and that had to do with applications to the Internal Revenue Service and to the state of Michigan, where we could not send them a check. We had to do online applications. And I used my credit card to pay for those applications. One was the IRS one was $600 and the state of Michigan was $20. I used my credit card to pay for those, and I considered that a donation. So on the one hand, it's a expenditure. On the other hand, it's a donation, which offsets each other. So I have since corrected that in May here, where I went to Huntington and I asked them for a check for $620. They gave it to me. Then I deposited it back in our account as a donation. So that's taken care of.
And I suggest, well, I agreed with Phil that that'd be a better paper trail in the long run. That
Can you explain it again? Because the last part, because it.
Oh, okay. So Tyler just looked at the ins and outs of the checking account.
Yeah.
The donations, the money going in.
You
and
used
the
your
checks
credit
with-
card.
Yeah, I used
pay
my
for it.
credit card, so it didn't show up as an in and out in the checking account.
Yep.
So through March, his audit period, so that's a footnote in his audit. Even though the balances are correct. He agrees with the
You-
balances.
So what you did is you took a GLUA check
Yes,
made out to yourself, signed it, and then
deposit.
donated it back. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm good.
And
I'm
it's gonna
good.
be a donation.
No, I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I'm good.
that's
with
what
it.
he was intended originally. He said, I'll just pay for it.
No, I
Okay.
thought you had written it. The check was written from your checking account. I'm like, well, they don't make sense, but no, you cleared it up for me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the audit cost us $1,100 and we had budgeted for that. And that is the only activity for the month of April. So I passed out a financial statement for April. The only change for April is that our checking account went down by $1,100. And it shows up in the last line up under assets, funding, legal, community outreach. It shows up in the $12,000 numbers. So that's the only change for the month of April.
What's the rest of the 12,000? Was that like some grant money that came?
No, those are expenditures in the 12,000. Those are
So was that
legal
for,
fees.
Way back.
Yeah,
oh, way back, so
Way
not
back, yeah.
current?
Since,
yeah.
yeah, this is,
Okay,
Just added.
okay.
this is basically in essence from day one. like,
Yeah, right.
Through balance sheets and net positions from our inception through April 30th of 2025.
Okay, so this is from the start to today. Okay.
So does anybody have any questions about the audit or the
No, I don't know, but
monthly
if
statement?
we ever do another one, I don't know if you want to put this for the month only. A column, would that make,
Oh,
that would make it maybe
yeah,
month only, April.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
whatever it would be, April 1st through April 30th, and then just, but I don't know if we'll ever do another one, so.
Yeah. well, we will. I will.
You will.
Phil?
Yeah.
Who have you shared this with? The audit itself? Have you given this to
Anyone yet or not yet?
Well, I gave it to Garrish Township.
And I'd like to make a motion to that effect that we, as our articles of incorporation require us to give it to both townships upon completion and acceptance from this board. Hey, let's first accept the audit. And if I could get somebody to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
And we have a motion. Do we get a second?
I'll second it.
And we have a second. Any further discussion?
What was the date of the completion?
Uh,
Of what? The audit?
Audit.
The audit.
Is there a date in there?
there might be.
Might be. I know it was after the 15th
It's-
because he said he couldn't get to it till.
Oh,
the week
yeah.
after.
So, on this page here that looks like this, it's dated April 12th.
Okay,
And it covers the period through March 31st.
Did you have extra copies of those for Lyon Township?
I don't, I only have one of these,
Okay,
but you guys have the audit. Everything in here you have a copy of.
yep. Yep. So nothing's been given to Lyon, just Garrett.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we consider what you've got is given to,
I think we
Lion?
should make it, let's first accept it
okay,
on the motion at hand. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none. The motion is approved. I'd like to then just have somebody make a motion that we then, for the articles of incorporation, and I don't know what section it is, but just forward it on that and note that we have approved it to both Garish and Lyon Township.
Typically, we don't do that with our audits. We don't even approve the audit.
Well, I don't know, but I would be overly cautious, and it requires an RR that we do it, move it on.
Correct. I'm just saying, I don't think we need a motion to do
I
that.
think I'd like a motion, please.
Yep. You can do that.
I just, it's a record that we.
Yep.
are doing it in accordance with the articles.
And this is to supply to make sure it's supplied to both townships, correct?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Better.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, where is it in the materials that we were given? Seems to be
yeah.
this one, right? So it's only those two pages.
Those 2 pages,
All
correct?
right,
Yeah, front and back.
thank you.
And that motion is to send it to both townships, correct?
For the articles.
Oh,
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No. That motion is approved. Okay, now, if we could have Mr. Osling, who's come up and speak in regards to the position, or at least some of the thoughts from Garish Township.
Yeah, I'm not too sure I have a lot to add that you haven't already talked about, but I'll just kind of go through what I had some notes here. I'm Jim Osling. I'm a trustee with Garrish Township.
Okay.
And their liaison to the GLUA board. I just use a little bit of background. I just had a note here that I'd sent to Mr. Barnwell earlier that back in February 12th, GLUA asked Garrish and Lyon to dissolve. This is a little timeline. The 20th of February, the Garrish board resolved to start the dissolution process before March 31st of 2025. And we then, Garrish board met with our legal counsel to begin that legal work on looks like maybe before March 20th. And out of that meeting came that was the start of the dissolution process as far as Garrish was concerned. Cancel the contracts and that sort of stuff. Sounds like that's all coming along, and I've seen paperwork. It looks like I've read most of that. So that's coming. But that is at the direction, that's a recommendation maybe of Garrish Township. We also asked that Lion, like Mr. Bonet said, Lion engage their legal counsel to start their dissolution process from Lion as well. And it just sounds to me like that has not, I guess it has started. You got a letter, or Lion apparently had a letter from their attorney as of yesterday. And I'm assuming that letter sounded like is the beginning of the dissolution from Lion's aspect. I think our question would be if GLUA could tell us, engage Lion enough to tell us when they expect to have that resolution presented to their board and move forward with that. I'd just like to get an idea on how fast this is coming along, if it's coming along in garbage, and how fast it's come along when we can expect to see some action to have this finished. It's been agreed upon by 2/3 of the parties for sure that this dissolution is the next step, and we would like to see, we'd like to know what the timing is to make that happen. Other than that, I don't have much, Jim, other than say if there's questions, I'd be glad to take them back to the board, or if I should.
Are you aware of many meetings prior, or the meetings have the two attorneys been in meetings? Quite a few over the last month or two?
Our attorney, he said, prepared this list. The philosophy behind the way he prepared it was there were certain steps that were taken to create the will, and just reversing the process, taking those steps backwards to dissolve GLUA. And Garrish attorney and Lyons attorney have had before hold me to the date, that before the 1st of April had at least 2 meetings and discussed this. Garrish's attorney sent the Word file that created his recommendation on a dissolution to Lyons attorney. Lyon had that. It was a matter of taking our suggestion. Our attorney's suggestion was you take that file, edit it for Lyon Township, pass it out of the township board.
So that would be the same resolution that the township passed on the 20th March.
Right.
And and so they're in possession of that, or at least their attorney is, that their attorney is, okay.
That was passed off to Mr. Vila on the Lyon side. And as of this afternoon, and an inquiry with our attorney, we have not heard anything back from the attorney, but that's not to say that there's obviously being done. I just haven't heard any more, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Austin? Yep.
Yeah. Could I ask you to take back a question to the attorneys
Sure.
that I'm concerned about? So we paid $1,100 for the audit, and we have one grant open. It's the Eagle grant, which was for a total of $40,000. And I think we've collected maybe 1,000 of that for legal expenses. I hope we can get reimbursement on that before we're dissolved. And the second thing I'm concerned about is about 2 months ago, we paid an annual insurance premium for about $2,500. And if we're going to be dissolved, I don't know how the logistics work on that. Do we get dissolved before we cancel the insurance policy, or do we dissolve and then try and get reimbursement for the unused portion of that insurance? I hope to get some money back that we're not using.
But you don't want to be without.
We don't want to be without insurance, that's for sure.
But once we're dissolved, we don't need it.
That's right.
Well,
I
yeah,
think I was just reading in your question.
Yeah.
You don't want to, you're not suggesting that somebody cancel the insurance before you're dissolved, because.
no,
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't-
If we're dissolved, who's making the claim for reimbursement?
I think we would want
we want to maintain.
the
our
insurance cancellation date to coincide
Yeah.
with And-
or after. or
But
after.
like you said, then there technically should be a refund for the unused
Yeah.
portion of that annual fee. Which would create
I
a,
think,
It's phone call to the agent.
Mhm.
Bill,
Says,
you-
okay, our
yeah.
resolution is gonna be such date forward.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we get quotas.
I think as when we get a little closer, we
Yeah.
can dissolve it after everything is
I'll
dotted.
probably need a motion from this board
to do it.
to cancel the insurance.
Yeah, at that
Yeah.
time,
Are
but I
you-
don't want to do it any premature.
Right.
So you typically, you're the person that works with the insurance company as far as
I will.
the renewal and stuff.
Yeah.
We got-
It may be a benefit to just reach out to them. I don't know who you guys have, but just to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what's going on. How do you think we should handle this?
I'll do that.
Then we would have a little bit more information, I think.
I'll do that.
Okay.
What's more the question with regard to the Eagle Grant, the Eagle Grant?
The Eagle grant is still open. We hope to get reimbursement for the $1,100 we paid for the audit just recently.
I guess to summarize, I think Bill's question is we've got a few things that are in the bucket and we don't want to
Yeah.
cut them off until we go through this process. And it doesn't sound like, we should hopefully have all this done and we can close it at that time. Because we don't want to leave money on the table.
Jim, I included that in the response to those 6 questions that Garish submitted to the board. It's in there too.
Okay, I'll see if I will do something.
It's in there, but I guess maybe a legal opinion might be useful for that.
I think you can just clarify. I'm sure it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, we can just clarify what the process should be, when it should be. Yeah. Who kicks that off?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I was just concerned if we're going to be dissolved in the next day or two.
I thought you said bring your calendars.
You
for the
said
meeting.
tomorrow night, didn't you say, Paul?
No,
It's all gonna be
you
done?
said bring your calendars so we can set the meetings.
Set a meeting. I'm sure we'll have a couple of meetings, coming up as this goes forward, so.
This is the first time I've heard of an Eagle grant. So I'm assuming this is a third grant.
We have
Yes,
3
yes.
grants.
Yeah,
We haven't been, it was more of it for administration and things like that, and it was very, we just haven't had we just got it and basically this started and we haven't had a real use for it or qualifications of expenses, so it was for $40,000.
And we made one claim to date.
Yeah.
if I would like to get a copy of that grant agreement, so I can review it. And I think that's probably another one we are going to have to then cancel.
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
complaining or anything. It was
Right.
just, it was kind of the first time I
Right.
heard it. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Well, actually, I
do
have,
have something that might help with the timeline. And what our attorney sent us, he's saying, I spoke with Garish's legal counsel, Scott Hess, several weeks ago. And that was somewhat at our behest at our last meeting, where we kind of decided that the attorneys working together was a good idea at that time. At that point in time, we were also trying to figure out the $66,000. As of today, I have not heard from Scott Hess regarding the MDARD grant. I reached out to his office for an update. When we last spoke, Scott indicated that he had a connection at MDARD and would work on sorting out that money in the best way for the townships. I'll let you know if I receive anything specific. So to portray it as being that Lyon Township was really not doing anything, that's information I can add to your timeline.
I'd just like to add to that is that the MDARD grant is through us. We've been following it. We have a very competent and capable person who has really been just a godsend for this organization and for the whole process that we've been going through and has been following up on this and will be doing that work. I don't think in the past we've had the townships getting involved in a lot of this stuff. I'll put their business. We're dealing with the MDR brand and that's what we're going to do. And we have, been in correspondence with them. They know where we are and we're in the process. And as we made a motion earlier, we're going to close it out. Thank you.
Seen that the underart is, it looks like we're going just exactly like you said. Wait for you to completion.
And they said, yeah, we're all finalized. Basically, we're paid out. So I'm sure there'll be a few documents we're going to have to sign, but that's it. So thank you.
Paul, in regard to the MDARD grant, there's an email correspondence from MDARD saying that they're considering it closed out. It looks like this.
I think I saw that in here, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Excuse me, Mr. Osling, I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
I have one comment / question. I just want to clarify, just so I have this straight in my head, that and you may not be able to answer this, that the position of Garish Township is, and I'm just going to assume, but that's never good to assume, that because of Lyon Township's lack of willingness to commit to at least starting the process to dissolve GLUA, when it takes both municipalities to start that process, that Garish's hands are tied, GLUA's hands are tied at this point because Lyon will not commit to the ideal or even the concept, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, it's been made clear to me that the decision is up to the Lyon Township Board, not the Lyon Township Attorney. So with that said, is it true then that Garish and GLUA's hands are tied because Lyon will not commit?
Feels like that to us. That's where
That's-
our frustration is that we started this, we engaged our attorney, he came up with a plan. He offered it up to Lyon Township and Lyon Township's attorney and our attorney. They have discussed it. And they are in agreement with Lyon's attorney suggested to our attorney that this looks really good. I'm in line with it. If you could send me a copy of the file, I will make the necessary changes and get that to the Lyon Township Board. I think that was last of May.
Okay.
And we're this much later, a month and a half later,
Yeah.
we haven't heard anything. So we're anxiously waiting to find out where this goes.
Okay.
forward.
Well,
As far
thank
as
you.
Glua's hands being tied,
Well, you can't answer for that. I get that part of it, but thank you. Yep.
I'd like to see this move forward, and if there's a reason it can't move forward, we'd like to know what that is. If there's.
And so would I, by the way.
If it comes to the point where Lyon Township says we're not moving forward, we need to know that.
And you should know, and that's very fair. Thank you.
We'll go from there.
Yep.
What steps we take.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're at a point where, and I did draft a motion myself, just to kind of say, hey, let's get off the thing, and I'd like to just pass that out.
Yep.
And then I can read it. I'm gonna take a couple of those. And it's not to, be trying to. It's basically in essence to move. Pass it down. My purpose is the same thing. It's getting frustrating. I'm getting a lot of gray hairs. Believe it or not, I had black hair about 3 months ago. Okay. But it's getting frustrating because, we had all last year we heard, certain, sectors of the community did not want to move forward. And they took, action at the polls to do so. And now, okay, we're gonna move forward with the dissolution, but now we can't get that same coalition of people to move forward to do this. So I just wanted to make a motion and I'll read it. Whereas the Garish Lyon Utility Authority meeting of February 12th, 2025, the GLU board passed a motion recommending the Garish and Lyon to begin the dissolution of GLU, and that Garish Township did enact the motion on March 2025 to facilitate this request. Whereas that in April, legal from Garrish and Lyon have met and agreed upon a dissolution plan. And I quoted that because was in a letter from Jim Osling to me. And the delay in this process is only time consuming and creating an additional cost to the residents of the townships. Therefore, the GLUA board hereby requests that Township immediately responds to this request and acknowledge its support for or against dissolution. Furthermore, that the townships work towards the dissolution in a prompt time frame in the best interest of the parties while complying with all the requirements of any regulations, laws, and the GLUA articles of incorporation. I'd like to get a second for that.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yes. The statement in here about Garrish and Lyon met and agreed upon a dissolution plan apparently came from Jim Osling. I never heard that from our attorney.
It just is legal met, not that the townships met.
Legal. Isn't that the attorneys?
Yeah. But you said the townships met, so okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Insofar as the only thing that really spurred the delay was the $66,000. And if that has been resolved, I would back up to the fact that our township board voted 4-1 to follow the attorney's advice. Mr. Monet was the dissenting vote. I will still refer back to the township board for the final decision. That's the only thing I have to add to this.
Okay. Any other? I'll just comment, this is not, we can't force anything. We're just reminding them that this is out there and we want this for the benefit of all the parties to move forward. So, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Want to do this in line or roll
Oh,
call?
yeah, we'll do roll call.
Bill Check,
Yes.
Jim Barnwell,
Yes.
Brian Cook,
No.
Tim
No.
Monet,
Aye.
yes.
Yes.
Paul Bertrand,
No.
Bill Lamb, yes.
Okay. I heard 4 yeas and 2 nays. This motion passes.
Yes.
Then the next item on the agenda under new business was we had a letter from Brian Hill, supervisor. You should have all gotten copies. I know he sent it to all of us. And then I kind of also sent it and it's in your packet. And he talks about, where do we stand on the different requests that they had made. And basically, some of you've heard from our discussion with the 2 townships and the dissolution as far as getting the grants together, getting our audit done, doing some of the paperwork necessary to move forward. Phil had written a response that basically summarizes that. And I'd like permission to just forward that on to the township. And we'll send it to both townships if we could.
We've already done that. Do you want to just go through his letter line by line? Because he's got 6 or 5 points. We want to go through that line by line just to make sure that we're finishing all these.
Is it the same as these?
Yeah,
That's the response.
Yeah.
That's the response. Here's his official letter.
Okay.
The questions on there should
Okay.
come directly from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if this
Yeah,
would
you
be
just
maybe
wanted-
better to go through.
That's fine.
Bill, do you want to take it since you were the fine editorial staff that did this?
I gotta find my copy of it.
Here, I got
Where's
a
the
copy.
letters? Oh, right here.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of disorganized today. Here it is. You want me to go through it then?
Yes, please, you.
Okay, so there were 6 items. The first one was a request for the audit, copies of the audit within 10 days. And the response was GLUA authorized the expenditure of funds for an independent audit. And by the way, I didn't mention it before. The audit was done by Tyler Waters, and he's the auditor that audits the different townships up here in this area. I think he does both Garish Township and Lyon Township too. So,
And the,
Yes, he does.
yeah,
and the Camp Cornelia.
yeah. So he's,
Well, the HLUA
HLU,
does
but
this.
that's,
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
knows that.
so he's the auditor that
Yeah.
actually performed this audit for us. GLUA signed and delivered to Tyler Waters an engagement letter and detailed financial transactions, including a list of monies received from donors and grantors on March 21st, 2025. The audit report for the period ending March 31st, 2025 was received on April 12th, 2025, copy attached. So that's one of the attachments, this being that attachment. You want to take questions after each of these?
We've made a
Public-
motion to go ahead and forward that already, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
No.
yeah, the audit,
Yeah.
the audit, the audit.
The audit, forward the audit.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah,
meant
Yeah, no,
this.
forward the
No,
audit.
no, no,
I'm just
okay.
making
We're
note
talking
that we-
this.
Yes.
No, I thought you meant we
Thank you.
approved this question
Right,
and
no.
answer thing.
Any questions on item number one?
Nope, good.
Any changes suggested? Okay. The second question had to do with closing out audits. And the answer that I proposed was all work on behalf of GLUA to develop a public sewer system has stopped. There are no open contracts with F&V or any other contractors. GLUA has an open liability insurance contract and an open grant contract with Eagle, that being the $40,000 one. GLUA intends to seek reimbursement from Eagle for the recent audit expenditures. GLUA intends to cancel its liability insurance contract and the Eagle contract as soon as it is appropriate.
If I may, one correction, you said cancel out the audits and it's cancel out the grants at the very beginning and accept the audits. For the record,
Can you say that again? I missed it.
that when you said that this next question had to do with canceling the grants, you said cancel the audits. And it's cancel the grants, accept the audit.
Except the audit.
In the question.
Yeah, but you said cancel the audits.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's cancel the grants.
Correct.
Okay.
Cancel the grants, accept
Yes.
the audit.
okay.
Get that cleaned up.
Good.
And may I ask, what about the $1 million? Are we ever going to close that out or has it been closed out when I
was
was in
gonna say,
here?
We can make a motion to
Oh,
kind of
very good.
final that letter out and get that done.
Very good.
We'd like, we could do that.
I thought we were going to do that in a little. Because it's this letter here we're talking about.
Yeah, we can do that right now.
No, let's finish the.
That's finished.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
we'll finish these
okay.
and then jump to that.
Just keep that on track.
Yep.
And I will wait one comment on some of the contracts. I'm spending money tonight because I was asked to Zoom the meeting and that was an expense. So we're going to have a few expenses and I want the township to know that,
Absolutely.
that we're going to have some miscellaneous expenses like that. I was requested and Brian Hill gave me the name of Redline. And I said, well, I think it was at Paul Bertrand's suggestion that we Zoom the meeting. So
I agree.
I took the liberty to,
And it's in our budget to pay for
Mhm.
this.
yeah, but we will be, we may have some other miscellaneous expenses. So that
Yep.
I think, maybe if Jim Osling would be so kind and gracious to let the township know, and we can put that in writing that we won't be making exorbitant $1 million things or grants, expenditures and, beyond what we've already budgeted, but there will be some miscellaneous expenses we know will be incurring. So thank you.
And I would word it just like that, miscellaneous expenses.
Yeah.
That's more than appropriate because we're not really 100% sure if we're going to run into a couple other things yet. So,
I'm sure we will.
Okay, moving on. The
Please.
third question has to do with notifying government entities of pending dissolution and providing Garish with proof of notification. And so on the back of the page, the answer is GLUA has taken steps to cancel the grant contracts with MDARD and with the EPA, copies attached. And this is the one email where MDARD has
Said we're
drawn the conclusion that MDARD is done. And the other, Jim, is the letter that
Oh,
I think are you going to ask for
yeah, that's what we're
Permission.
gonna do a motion.
to the EPA? That's your letter to the EPA canceling that contract. Official.
Agreement,
Grant.
yeah. Grant agreement or
Grant.
whatever you want to call it.
Any discussion about that one? Okay. The fourth question, pay all outstanding obligations within 60 days. The answer is GLUA does not have any outstanding obligations and does not anticipate any additional
And
expenditure.
I think we
Other
should
than
just
the
make a little
miscellaneous.
footnote there,
yes.
because cha-ching, cha-ching, it's going rolling right now. We're expending money now. Thank you.
Okay. The last, so I'll make the two
Yeah,
changes
just those
Mhm.
minor things.
for the audit that you suggested
Yep.
and for this miscellaneous. And the fifth question had to do with closing out grants, and all I said was, please see the answer to item 2 and 3 above.
Yes.
Which.
Yep,
Grants.
yep.
Good.
I think what would be in order is first a motion to send a letter to EPA indicating the status on our thing, and I think you guys got copies of the letters, just fairly simple, saying that, withdrawing the grant or closing the grant or whatever is worded.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on it?
We need a roll call.
Yeah, we will after. Yep. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Bill Check,
Yay.
Jim Barnwell,
Yes.
Brian Cook,
Yes.
sorry, Tim O'Neill,
Yes.
Paul Bertrand,
Yes.
Bill Lamb, yes.
Okay. Hearing no nays, or are there any nays? Nope. So hearing none, the motion is passed. The second motion, if we could have a quick motion just to forward this on to the township, with a few minor corrections and we'll assume Phil can take care of that. Could I get a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Monet and
I'll second it.
second by Paul Bertrand. We have some discussion on that. We talked about it a little bit already.
I think it's really just kind of a formality really for us.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Okay, now we're new business number 3, and this is it was a request to have the consider a GLUA attorney. Currently don't have an identified attorney or anything, but I think just a backstory, we did authorize to to get an attorney as needed earlier in the year. I think it was around December or maybe even November. It was authorized to go ahead and do that as needed. And I just want to reaffirm that if we need an attorney, and I think we should at some point, when maybe we get this list of things we need to do, things like that, hey, I know, we've got the township attorneys looking at it, but I think, as some people may feel more comfortable if we spend a small portion of money and we can do that, a couple $1,000s.
So,
I know you've been involved.
yeah, obviously we don't have an attorney. As far as canceling out the grants, I don't think we really need legal advice on that, right? We know what we're doing.
Susan does.
Yes, someone does. Somebody. But I think really the big question for everybody in both townships is what do we do with this money that's left? What can we do with it? And my feeling is it's fine that Lyon takes their attorney's opinion, Garish takes their attorney's opinion. But I really believe strongly that this board needs its own independent attorney to advise us on, hey, here's what's legal, what's not, here's what you can do, what you can't do. And just to get our own opinion for us as a board.
Primarily on the distribution of
That's primarily
if
what it's
any
going to
money
be.
is for. Okay.
Yeah. And if there's any other minor things that come up. So what I talked to Jim before our meeting today is, we have an attorney for the HLUA. He's been our attorney for about 5-6 years now. He's based out of Cadillac. Pretty much his whole career, 20 to 30 years, has been on municipality, utility authority. We spend very little with this guy. We get a discounted municipal rate. When we ask him a question, he almost always knows the answer right away because he's dealt with everything. And he knows what the court cases and all that stuff are. So my recommendation would be for us, because the limited need we need with an attorney would be to use him for our legal advice. I actually was over in Cadillac at their office for something with the utility authority earlier today. And I asked him quick, I said, hey, I'm on this other utility authority board. We've got to dissolve it. We got to shut it down. They never became operational. We got kind of a couple questions. And he said, yes, he would be willing to do that. Because it's just, real short amount of work. Currently our rate is $200 an hour, our discounted municipal rate currently. I don't think we're probably going to have more than a couple hours in this, if that. So that's kind of my recommendation is if you guys feel comfortable with it, I can get you information. But I think our best bet would be to use him. I would be surprised if we spent $1,000 total. I don't know if we want to budget something like, if we did, I would say like $2,000 max, or we can even set it at 1,000. And then if we hit that, we could approve more. But I'd like, to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, let's make a motion to do something and then we can discuss it. Well, we can discuss it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, let's wait and
That's
decide.
you.
We'll discuss it because
I'd like that
It was an item on our agenda that we inserted, so we can discuss it.
We're
We're
discussing.
clear. We're in discussion, not,
Is
So
there
very-
a motion?
no motion. Yeah.
No motion?
I concur with Brian. The only thing I'm concerned about, and someone can correct me, is that I was under the assumption that time and resources and money have already been spent, that the attorneys had worked out a tentative plan how to disperse any funds that are left over. And are we doubling back now, going to spend more money that we've already paid attorneys for what should have already been worked out, or I've been told has been worked out?
I could probably be swayed to agree with you on the attorney part. I have some reservations on whether it should be the Higgins Lake Utility Authority attorney. Partially because one of the suggestions from our attorney, first of all, if there's any money left, one of the ways to consider would be to find one or several orgs or organizations with similar purpose as GLUA to which the funds could be dispersed. This is not the only suggestion, but it's one of them. Examples were investigating health and safety of the lake, investigating septic systems. I think the Higgins Lake Utility Authority having an attorney related to the Higgins Lake Utility Authority is very similar to what we're trying to avoid with our attorneys if we go forward. So I think I agree that maybe an attorney is not a bad idea for a set price, but I would like to look for a different attorney.
Is there a conflict of interest or?
Yeah, essentially the money could end up going to the Higgins Lake Utility Authority. That's
think
one
I-
of the possibilities.
I think I can address that.
If there's any money, let me keep saying if.
I'm the vice chair and treasurer of the HLUA board. The chair and I spent several hours of the HLUA board. Him and I were together for many hours today. We did speak about this a little bit, about that potential of this money being transferred over there. The fact of the matter is the HLUA needs to expand. Our costs just keep going up. We've got a small group of people that are paying. Our treatment plant costs could be spread out over much, much more people. But we do not feel that it would be appropriate to take this money and transfer it over to the HLUA. We don't feel that would be appropriate to do. Being involved, doing stuff going forward, yes, but taking this money and moving over there, we don't feel is probably a good idea. Now, there's been no HLUA board decision on that, but I think you would probably find that everybody would be very hesitant on that.
If you
My
could,
view,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. I am no, I think I need to wait
No.
on.
I thank you for the additional there. If you show me that in writing, I'm with you.
Well, I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think it's mainly sounds to me like our really focus is on the distribution of the funds at the end. And I'm not sure, but not sure about anything because I'm not an attorney, but I would surmise that it's our decision to be made. And the townships may be able to recommend something to us. And at that time, I think we'll be not within the next 20 or 30 days. But I do think it would be wise to have somebody on our side, at least to look at that last tidbit. So I would just ask that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. And that if somebody else comes up with some other attorney that we may want to talk to, we could. And then at that time, think maybe Brian can figure out, hey, are we looking at $2,000? Because I think that'd be money well spent, a couple of $1,000, and in the sake of doing, justify the distribution of those funds. So,
And what I would recommend, so we do get an attorney, I would recommend using the policy we have at the HLUA, which is the chair and vice chair together are involved with all attorney communication. So you always have two people in there. So if an email sent, the other person's always copied on that. If you're talking to the attorney on the phone, all three are on the phone together. That way there's no, question of what was said, what wasn't said, or anything else. And it's worked great for us because we had issues in the past.
Sure.
So I would, recommend the
well,
same.
Brian, I'd like you to then draft up a little motion, if you would, for next time.
I can do
with
that.
those words in it, and then we'll
Yes.
just leave some blanks for
Yep.
the attorney, and and then we can just make that decision if it's decided. And I think I do think it's a good idea to maybe have somebody kind of give us the last Passover before we go to our grave.
Yeah, my gut is it's probably going to end up being
Sorry.
a few $100 because I think it's
Okay.
less than an hour or two.
So can I say some words here?
Yes, you may.
So before we talk to any council, I think we as a board need to know what the issues we'd like to address.
Yeah, and I think
And,
that's.
and we'd also like to know where we'd like to go with those issues. Like, would we like to give it back to the donors? Would we like to give it to a 501c3 organization? What would
Yeah.
be our,
Well, they may be the ones that give us the options too. There may be stuff we don't know. So, but yeah, that I think would be one of our first discussions. What are our options? What are legally we can do? And then we can decide, yeah, we don't want to give it to, you know.
so far what I heard was the only question on the table is what do we do with leftover money?
That's the main thing.
I
it seems
think
to
that
be.
is really
If,
Are
the
there
big
any other
question.
questions?
But I think
Well,
that's,
I could-
we don't name a township on the one side that wants to even dissolve. We don't know. Maybe they want to keep it going. Who knows?
I should throw something else in here. I don't want to be misleading by saying that. The attorney gave two suggestions and emphasized, these are not the only ideas. The other one, besides finding an org to give it to, was to discuss prorating and returning to the donors. He made the point that if we know the amount left after all the debts are paid, if any, but there's no sense in using our time and resources writing checks for pennies and paying for the postage. So yeah, it kind of comes down to
Okay.
what's the number?
Well, that's why we'll get some options maybe from that person and go from there. I do have one more.
I think we're talking, sorry,
Yeah, okay.
I think we're talking probably right around 40,000 because we're at like 43,000 cash on hand today. So I would say
40,000,
probably
yeah.
40,000-ish
Well,
is
yeah,
where
Yeah,
we're at.
but we don't have the 11,000 that we're gonna get from
True.
The 1,100, you mean?
11,000 for the last, we've sent an
Okay, yeah,
invoice,
yeah.
our final closing invoice.
16, it was originally 16, and then it got
Well, they only pay 70% back.
correct.
Yeah.
And that was all
That
attorney
was,
fees?
no, that was
That was Fleece and Vanderbrink.
their
Last
last
bill.
bill
Last
back
invoice.
in, I think we paid it back in February.
So
and We
this
submitted it.
doesn't include all that yet? Is that? would
We
that-
haven't
in-
received money from
Yeah.
this, the
Yeah.
11,000. We haven't received 11,000, not 1,100.
Okay,
Not to be confused with the bill.
The audit for 1,100.
No, what happened is the expense is there. We've paid all our bills. We're 100% paid up for bills, except for the one we're incurring tonight. And, but we have an outstanding receipt.
We expect it any day now.
Expected any day.
okay.
So we should have that. And
No, I'm glad you clarified that.
How'd you ask?
okay.
That's from the MD.
I'm darned. So what does that make us? About 53,000
Yep.
if all goes well.
Yep.
One last thing was, this is all geared towards the suggestion being, how do we get the fund balance to zero? As far as what to do with money.
Yeah. That's what that'll be geared for.
One for each of you.
Which we already have.
Just
So-
as long as we-
Another
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, I was gonna add something at the end tomorrow. Yeah, I had one more motion I'd like to offer. And this just has to do with our willingness to cooperate with the, with our co-individuals that are part of our, I say, the triumphant. And hopefully we can all work together, but I'll make a motion that whereas GLUA, Garrish Line Utility Authority requested Garrish Township and Lyon to consider and proceed with the dissolution of the GLUA in its motion of February 12th, 2025. And whereas GLUA was created by the township to pursue the purposes as stated in the GLUA Articles of Incorporation is agreed to at that time by the townships and have now agreed in principle to proceed with the dissolution of GLUA. And whereas the Garrish and Lyon Township are working on the dissolution of GLUA in the best interest of the community, townships, and GLUA in accordance with GLUA's Articles of Incorporation bylaws, whereas the townships have or are working on an agreement which will be in principle layout, process, and procedures of dissolution. The agreement will be in compliance with said articles and bylaws and in compliance with all regulations and laws and will act in the best interest of the parties involved, i.e. the townships, GLUA, and its residents. Therefore, the GLUA board hereby authorizes officers of GLUA to provide information and that we possess, GLUA possesses as requested by the township and in their agreement and any amendments thereto required for the dissolution process to proceed in a timely manner. And furthermore, the GLUA board authorizes the officers of GLUA to sign any necessary and required documents requested by the township in their agreement and any amendments thereto required for the dissolution process to proceed in a timely manner. And furthermore, the GLUA board will assist request by the township as required to meet the procedures and process outlined in the agreement and any amendments thereto to facilitate the required dissolution. But I did add one more, furthermore, the GLUA reserves the right to consult an attorney as needed. But based on our discussion today, and I know this assumes that Lyon Township is on board and is going to proceed with the GLUA, since that's an unknown, I want you to take this and I'd like to pass this at our next meeting.
So
Because
you didn't actually make a motion, then you just.
I guess I rescind my motion. And I just thought, I just wanted to read it for edification for everybody. But I think it's important that we express our desire, but it says in there that, the townships are in agreement to a certain extent of dissolving, but right now, we haven't had that confirmed in writing or by motion by Lyon Township, so that's an unknown.
Jim, I'm thinking as I'm looking at this,
You can revise.
instead of using GLUA board here, but well, I guess you do discuss. Can the GLUA board authorize you as our president to do all this work instead of?
I don't want to do all of
Which paragraph are you?
it. No, some of it'll be
I guess the last one, GLUA
Yeah.
board will assist.
the township says. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that
Can
like
we-
you as the treasurer will have to be providing. And there's some maybe that the secretary will have to provide and some that I will have to provide. And with the support of Mr. Cook.
Yeah, but not the entire GLUA board.
No, not as a full board, just as,
Okay.
but we can refine that, but that's I would like to make that motion or have a similar motion to that effect at the next meeting, just so that we can say, hey, we are partners in this with them and we're willing and able to move. We're all volunteers, so sometimes they can't get a hold of me or whatever, they can get a hold of one of you. So.
I would just like to make one comment, and that's the second to last paragraph where it says, furthermore, the GLUA board hereby authorizes the officers of GLUA to sign any necessary required documents, blah, 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 blah. I object to that because
Okay.
the board itself should make the decision and then the officers
Okay.
sign the paperwork and stuff.
You want to edit and we can discuss it at the next meeting. But I'm just throwing it out because I want both Lyon Township, if they decide to dissolve and move forward, and Garrish to know that, we're not going to sandbag this or delay it. But we do want to follow proper procedures as their attorneys, if it moves forward, so desire. Okay. So that was just a topic for next. So we have two topics for next time. You write those down, attorney. And if anybody has any other discussion items for the next board meeting, let me know. I think this is where we add on set the meeting date. And I didn't bring my calendar and I don't have my phone. Does anybody have a?
Would it make sense to maybe just schedule one meeting at this point?
Yeah, I'm just doing one at a
Okay.
time.
Nope, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's why.
Because I think hopefully next month we'll know more.
Yeah, I think we're doing one at a month, but I don't have a calendar, so.
What's,
For the sake of moving along, if I have success in creating a special meeting next week to make a decision on this, I'm okay with 2 weeks from now for another meeting for us, unless there are other things out there that we're really
Okay.
hung up on.
Do you just need to see a calendar or you want your stuff?
I just want everybody to kind of
Do
agree
you need a calendar?
and we can set, I can't see it here.
I'll pass it over to you.
We could go then if fall is all and saying like it'd be like, say, June 10th. How's that?
that's 3 weeks out and I kind of like that because I think the 2 weeks might be a little
Well, you got
bit.
the
too-
holiday in there too, so you got a
Yes.
short
We
week.
gotta get minutes and everything
Yeah.
prepared for.
So June 10th, we'll make it. Do you want to do it during the day or during the morning? And we'll have to see what. Tuesday or what?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
What if we just make it the same time? Because I would assume that we've been having these meetings at this time, so we should all be good.
We'll have to check availability of the here.
Yep.
And then,
I believe that by June 10th, we will have our Microsoft Teams
okay,
meeting set up.
so we could do it at either.
Possibly, I could do it there, yeah.
I'd like to then suggest we make it for June 10th, 7 PM at a site to be determined.
I'll make that motion.
We got a motion from,
I'll second it.
and we have a second for June 10th, 7 PM, and we'll post it. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Nays? June 10th, 7 PM. We'll open it up to I think it was the public comments. If anybody wants to come up and speak, please just come up and raise your, just tell us who you are and
Follow up on Mr. Bertram's comment about if you need to, distribute those funds back to, if it's decided to distribute those funds back to individual donors. I spent some time with those names. Addresses, maybe if I had them, if you could have them. And, in a spreadsheet, so that if it turns out that you've got X amount of money left, you plug that number at the top and it distributes the proration out to those people, so. Yeah, a lot of that work's already done. If you
Yeah.
decide to go that way, don't reinvent that wheel. Let me know when we send the file, but.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jim.
Yep.
And what,
You.
if we're going to go that route, Jim Anderson also suggested that we use Garish Township or one of the township trust accounts and let the people come in here and take the money that they want,
I want it all.
that they're entitled to, excuse me.
Okay.
Instead of mailing it out, they
Okay.
come in here and claim it.
Let's see, is there further comments? Yes, you may.
That conversation about the distribution of funds. I agree with what Timone said earlier about that both township attorneys in their initial review of the material have provided an idea about what to do with the leftover money, and you read a couple of those ideas. And I do not agree that it's a good use of the remaining funds to spend even $2,000 to get another attorney. If that's the main issue, you want to talk about how to distribute the funds. You already have two attorneys examples written down. You've discussed a little bit here. I've got somebody who donated. I would not say it's good use of.
Okay. Thank you.
to get
Thank you,
another
Sue.
attorney to talk.
And I'll just say, I mean, we will reserve the right to obtain attorney. If they give us good information, I think but yes.
Yeah, in my reason for suggesting it is really pure and simple. This board does not have attorney representation. We do not have
If we
legal
need one, we'll have it.
representation.
So, okay, thank you. Any? Okay, seeing none, any board comments? We'll go Tim, Bill.
I guess I have one thing that's troubling me. And that is the process we went through today. I think we unfairly put Paul on the spot. Paul is here not as the township supervisor, as a board person for GLUA.
I did write him a letter as far as that and asked him if he would be so kind as to give us a Lyon Township. So
Yeah,
it
and
wasn't totally.
the other
yeah.
thing I had along those same lines is referring to somebody in the audience in our discussion. I don't think we should do that.
Okay.
I don't think that was appropriate.
Thank you. Paul, do you have any further?
No, I guess I'm not sure what you're referring to on the second part, but that's fine.
Bill?
I just want this thing over and done with. We need to finish this thing out, minimize the amount of money that's being used by the attorneys. This is a direct reflection, goes to the taxpayers. We need to finish this thing and move forward and get this thing dissolved, period.
Okay, Brian, you're done, right?
No,
Okay.
I've talked enough today.
I've talked enough. So hearing no further, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second.
Brian, second. Any more further discussion?
Looks like it's 8:25.
At 8, whatever, I can't read.
8:23 p.m.
8:23, okay. Motion to adjourn. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.